channel, it's Josephine here. If you're new, thank you very much for stopping by. On my channel, I talk about all things lifestyle. The month of January, I'm going to be sharing tips on how to succeed in your career. And I mean, we're starting a new year, why not? I'm going to be uploading videos twice a week throughout the month of January, so do subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you can get notified every time I upload a video. If you are a returner, thank you very much. Thank you for keeping the channel going. Please do comment down below if you find this video interesting. Today I'm going to be talking about tips for success at job interviews. I know that we're in 2021 and people will be looking to get new job opportunities. New year, new job, new you, do you, okay. And I just wanted to share some of the tips that have worked very well for me in the past. So get yourself comfortable and let's get into it. The first step, which is the most obvious that anybody's going to tell you to do, is to research. But I'm not just going to be blind and saying research. You need to research three main things. Number one, the company, duh. Number two is the interviewer. And number three is the role. Now, when I say in the company, obviously go on their About Us page, read about them, read about their products or the services that they offer. What are their ethics? What are their values? What are the key words that they use in their language? So some companies will talk a lot about teamwork. Some people will talk a lot about sustainability. Some companies will talk a lot about growth. But you need to find out what those keywords are, because that influences the culture at the firm. And those are the kind of things that you need to be able to demonstrate that you're aware of and that aligns with your values. Because the most important thing is not just getting the job, but it's about getting the job that you like and that is a good fit for you. A lot of the times when we go into job interviews, we're trying to put our best foot forward, which you should do. But the company should also be trying to put their best foot forward because you are an asset to them. So it's not just about you trying to look good in front of them, they need to look good in front of you. And in order to do that, you also need to make sure that you align, you guys are on the same wavelength or the same vibes when it comes to the culture. The second thing I mentioned that you need to research is the interviewer. See, I have a habit of LinkedIn stalking whoever's going to interview me. So whenever I get like the confirmation sent, I'm going to be interviewed by Joe Blogs, I'll go on to LinkedIn and I'll look up Joe Blogs, look at where they've worked, look at how long they've worked there, what level of seniority, which should already be in the interview description. And I just want to see if there's things that we both share. So if we've both worked at a past company, or if we both have connections in common, or if we have maybe a university that we both attended. But you need to try and find some common ground with the interviewer before you go there, so you can kind of build in your head a very, very basic picture that, okay, this person that's going to interview me is a senior manager. They attended the same university as me, albeit like 10 years before me. They have worked at a company that I worked at before, or a competitor company to where I've worked at before. And just have some things in your back pocket that you know that you might want to throw in as little anecdotes. You're not going to go and say, oh yes, so I see you worked at JP Morgan today. No, you want to find things that you can just be like, oh yeah, so in my time at JP Morgan, and then XYZ will be like, oh yeah, so I worked there, and then you have something to talk about. So that's what I mean by research the interviewer. Now thirdly, you obviously need to research the role, especially if you're switching into something new. If it's something that you've done before and you're just changing companies, then it'd be a good time for you to just refresh on things that's like terminology, regulations, if there's been updates to whatever the product or the service or the industry that you work in. For me, I work in financial services, so I need to be abreast of different regulations, what impact Brexit has had or will have, and just little things so that when you go in, you are fully armed. A lot of the times when you are in a role, especially if it's a BAU or business as usual type of role, you kind of just get stuck into the regular stuff and you forget that there's life going on outside of the company or outside of what you're doing. So it's good to just refresh on the role and any skills or any additional qualifications that you've got, exams that you've taken that you can bring into this role. Be sure to be able to boast about them. thing you need to be clear on is what type of interview it is. Obviously, since the whole world is pretty much in lockdown, I don't think there's any more face-to-face interviews. Interviews are either on the telephone or on some kind of video call, whether Skype or Teams or what have you, or Zoom. Now, the difference between a telephone interview and a face-to-face is usually a telephone is just to get a feel of the candidate. They want to hear how you come across, especially if there's still going to be a face-to-face. So if it's just telephone and then face-to-face, then they're just trying to hear what you sound like, make sure that you tick the right boxes in terms of like you sound okay, you have a good handle on things. They'll usually ask you to run through your CV. It's usually no longer than half an hour because they know that they're still going to have a good 45 minutes to an hour to sit down with you at the face-to-face. Now on your telephone interview, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Make sure that you're in a place that is quiet. A good room that is quiet, free from distractions, free from noise, and with a good signal. Now that we're in the whole Zoom and digital world at the moment, the same applies for if you were going to have a video call. If you know that one part of your house is shoddy for Wi-Fi connection, don't sit there, just to ensure that you have the best chance of presenting yourself and not having distractions or, oh yeah, can you hear me? Oh no, you dropped out. Oh no, my connection. Oh, you froze. Obviously life happens. Sometimes internet connections drop. But if you know that the living room is rubbish for signal, then don't sit in the living room. Also, presentation wise, sounds really noddy, but just because you're at home doesn't mean you should be doing a job interview in a t-shirt. I don't care how relaxed the company is. It could be a fintech startup where they all wear black t-shirts and jeans. Always try and present yourself as formal as possible. No one's saying you should go in a three-piece suit, but at least a shirt and a blazer if you're a man, and if you're a woman, wear a nice blouse or a jumper or something that is acceptable if you were going to go into the workplace. It's better to err on the side of caution and say, yeah, I know that you guys are a bit casual, but I just wanted to come across formally, and then thereafter you can understand what they mean by casual, because one person's casual might be t-shirt and jeans, another person's casual might be polo and chinos. Now, once you know whether you're having a telephone or a face-to-face or a video interview, the next thing is to understand what is the aim of the interview. Is it to test your competency? Are they going to ask you a lot of situational questions? Or is it more about your fit? Are they trying to get a feel for your personality? In some companies where you have multiple stages, they'll have a different interview for a different thing. So in one stage you'll have your telephone interview, then you might have your competency, and then the final stage is more for fit, which is what I've experienced. So you need to understand if it's a competency-based interview, obviously get your competencies up. Do a lot of practice questions on competency-based interviews, practice situational examples as well, and have your examples to hand. When I'm going for interviews, I will have a bunch of practice questions and I will put bullet points of practice answers underneath. So I'll be like, well, when I worked at XYZ, I did this. When I worked at blah, blah, blah. And I just, maybe have like 6 or 7 questions that are quite likely to come up. They tend to be variations of the same thing. One thing I will also suggest is if you're going to have a telephone interview, it could be handy to have some stickies around you, but just be very careful of that because they can be a bit more distracting than they are helpful. But if you know that you've got it on lock, you might have a few sticky notes around the room or around your desk or whatever, so that when you're on the phone you can quickly glance at it. But really, you shouldn't need any of that because you should be very well prepared in the first place. The next tip that I have is to let your personality shine through. When I go into interviews, I like to make it like I'm having a conversation with them, which is why the research of the interviewer is really useful in advance, because you go in, I'm meeting with Joe Bloggs. Joe Bloggs went to my university. He worked at a company that I worked at before, and so I'm gonna have a conversation because in my head I kind of already know Joe Bloggs, so it's not so daunting. And when you're able to have a regular conversation, remember to laugh, remember to smile, ask them questions. It begins to flow a bit more naturally, if that makes sense, because quite frankly, in an interview, it's a really artificial situation. The person interviewing you feels like a head teacher that's like, marking you, and you're there like, oh, what they writing. So what you want to do is to minimize those kind of tensions and distractions and just have a chat. If they need to make notes, which they obviously do, give them the time to make the notes, smile, eye contact, and a good composure. When you're talking to them, it's really good to have real life examples because it makes you relatable. Obviously, you won't have an answer for every situation, and you need to be honest about that. In the situation, if you are asked a direct question that you don't know the answer to, don't just wing it. Be honest. I'm not entirely sure about that, but if I was to hazard a guess, or if I was to estimate, or if I was to give an opinion on it, I would say, I would estimate, I would assume, blah, blah, blah. You don't just wing it, acting like you know your ish, because you could be talking a whole lot of rubbish. That rhymes. So yeah, nobody is infallible. Nobody knows everything. And that's quite normal. Unless it's something that like is very, very, very basic that you should really know. Like if you're going to go and be a maths teacher and they ask you what's 2 plus 2, you can't exactly say, oh, I can't really speak on that right now. That doesn't make sense. Be open to admitting you don't know something, but reassuring enough that you will research it or that you have a general idea of what you think it might be. Now, the final point that I have, which everybody says also, is to ask questions. Growing up, we were taught to always have a question at the end. I ask questions throughout the interview. You're interviewing me, I'm interviewing you. It's a two-way street, like I mentioned. So I ask questions along the way, and then also at the end. I like the interviewers to talk more about themselves, so I get a feel for, is this person crazy? Is this person nasty? Is this person nice? And obviously you can't get all of that in an hour's interview, but you should be able to get a good idea of the company and of the person. So don't ever leave an interview without really understanding what you're going into. So when I ask questions, I like to ask the people themselves why they work there, why they've worked there for so long, especially if it's someone that's got like 4, 5, 6 years under their belt at a particular company. It means something's going well for them. If they've progressed, or if they've spent 4, 5, 6 years in the same role, but if they've progressed, if they've moved teams, why they've stayed there, because obviously they would have been approached by other recruiters for other roles, but the fact that they're still there means that there's something good about it. So ask questions, get an understanding of what the role is going to be like, get a better understanding of the kind of commitment level that they're going to be requiring, be honest. And if you need a bit more time in an interview, don't be afraid to go over. I've had an interview where I went over by another half hour. It felt very, very comfortable, and the person interviewing me really wanted me to get all my apprehensions out of the way and speak and get all clarity on all the questions that I had. So actually what we did was we ended up leaving the interview room because the time was up, and we sat in the lounge, and it was such a nice discussion. And that's what I mean. They're human beings. They're interviewing you, but they're people. Humanize the interviewer and you'll be all right. So those are all the tips that I have to share for successful job interviews. I hope and I pray that in 2021, you will land the job of your dreams. If I've missed any points, please do comment down below things that have worked for you. I'm very interested in learning and improving. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. As I mentioned, I'm going to be putting out videos twice a week throughout January. So hit the bell button so you can get notified when I upload a new video, and follow me on social media. It's at JMOTG across all the socials, the one and only. And until next time, thank you very much for watching my video, and bye.